Can y'all open the respect everyone's time? Thank you for participating in our Broadview Comprehensive Plan update for the 2024-25. This is our plan for the next 15 to 25 years. So first of all, I want to say good evening and thank you all for being here, watching online this afternoon if you're in person or online. I'll get right to it so we can respect everyone's time. But before we do, I want to acknowledge that we do have Trustee Jari Shelby that's here, and our village clerk is here as well as some of our department leadership. The Broadview Comprehensive Plan represents a strategic blueprint for the future growth and development of our community. It serves as a guiding document that outlines the vision, goals, and policies that will direct physical, social, and economic development of the village over the next several years. This plan is crucial for several reasons. Why we need a comprehensive plan. One, guided growth and development. The comprehensive plan helps ensure the growth and development in Broadview are managed in a way that aligns with the long-term goals of the community, and it provides a framework for making informed decisions about land use, housing, transportation, infrastructure, and environmental stewardship. Number two, community vision and goals. The plan embodies the vision of the people of Broadview. Through public consultations and engagement sessions, it captured the aspiration and priorities of residents, ensuring that the community's development reflects their needs and desires. Number three, economic development. A well-defined plan attracts and retains businesses by providing clear guidelines on the types of development encouraged in the village. This predictable supports economic growth and stability, creating jobs and enhancing the quality of life for the residents. Number four, environmental and social sustainability. The plan addresses important aspects of sustainability and resilience, guiding Broadview in managing natural resources wisely, promoting energy efficiency, and ensuring that community development is socially inclusive. Number five, coordination and efficiency. By aligning the efforts of various departments, the comprehensive plan promotes a more coordinated approach to development, improving efficiency in public spending, and ensure that projects support overarching community goals. Vision of the people. The vision of the Broadview Comprehensive Plan is shaped by a collective input and aspiration of our residents. It envisions a vibrant, safe, and inclusive community where everyone can thrive. Key elements of the vision includes enhanced quality of life, improvements in housing, parks, and recreation facilities to meet the needs of all age groups, robust local economy, support for local businesses, and attraction of new enterprises that align with Broadview's character and provide diverse employment opportunities. Sustainability practices, commitment to sustainable practices that protect the environmental, that make Broadview a leader in green initiatives. Improve transportation and infrastructure. Upgrades to transportation systems and infrastructure to improve connectivity and accessibility within the village and neighboring communities. Community health and safety. Initiatives to enhance public safety and promote health and wellness among the residents. Our acknowledgements as we move forward with the Broadview Comprehensive Plan. I want to extend my heartfelt thanks to the Village Board of Trustees for their unwavering support and insightful guidance. Your dedication is fundamental to the plan's successful implementation. I also want to express my gratitude to our residents, whose engagement and input have shaped the vision of this plan. Your commitment to the future of our village is truly inspiring. Lastly, I'd like to thank our department heads for their expertise and hard work. Your collaborative efforts ensure that the strategies we adopted are not only visionary, but are also practical and executable. Together, we are setting a course for Broadview that respects our history while boldly embracing the future. The comprehensive plan is more than a document. It's a commitment to our community prosperity and well-being. Let's continue to work together and make Broadview an even better place to live, work, and play. Now I will turn it over to Pete from TESCA to go through the presentation of the draft, and we will open the discussion up for questions and comments after the presentation. So Pete, you want to take it over?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
All right, so thanks everybody for coming out on this wonderful night. So I'm Pete from, my name's Pete Iosi from TESCA Associates. We are planning consultants. I have been actually working as a consultant for the Village of Broadview for probably coming on almost 20 years now. So I'm very familiar with the community and the staff. And so as the mayor said, we began this process to update the village's comprehensive plan. So I just have a couple slides I'm going to run through, and then I'm happy to take any questions that you guys might have. So first of all, we began this process right about this time last year with the goal of getting it done. The goal was to get it done by the end of 2024. We missed it by that much. So I have a draft plan that was completed in January, and now I am just making revisions from any input that we get, and so hopefully we'll get some input tonight, and we can have a final plan that I believe the mayor wants to get approved later this month. We had a number of big targeted events throughout 2024. Throughout this process, we had a staff and department head retreat in June, which was super productive. I was at the Juneteenth event. I had a booth out there. I was talking to people all day. I was particularly happy. We had a lot of young kids stopped at my booth, a lot of high school kids, which typically when I go through this process, it's really hard to get input from that generation, just from the younger generation. Just to get them to come out to a public meeting like this, it's just not going to happen. So I was super happy to get some input from the younger group. And then we had a public workshop in just a couple months ago in November. And then, as I said, I completed the draft report in January. Now we're making revisions. So the mayor talked about most of this stuff, so I'll just run through this quickly, but the comprehensive plan is basically the long-term vision for the community. It's basically a 10, 20-year plan. So we're taking a look at where are we at right now, and where do we want to go, and then how are we going to get there. A couple of things, just to piggyback on some of the stuff that the mayor was saying, a couple of the very important parts to having a comprehensive plan. Number one, it's a guiding document for the village board and for your planning commission. If somebody comes in for a rezoning of a property, or we want to build this new thing here, go to the comp plan. We already thought it through. Does that fit in the vision of the community? So it's very helpful for your board, and it's very helpful for the planning commission. And it's also very important when the village is going to apply for grants from the state or from the federal government. They are always looking for, they don't like that, oh, we see a pot of money and now we're going for it. They want to see that you've thought this through already. We have a plan. This is in our plan, and that is very helpful when you're going to get grants for the community. So it's very important for a village to have a comprehensive plan. Like I said, it's a 10, 20-year document, but you should be looking at it every couple of years just to make sure that it's still meeting the goals and directions of the community. You never know when something crazy like a pandemic is going to happen and everything just changes. So you want to periodically look at the document and make sure that it's still aligned with your vision. So the major plan elements, these are the big sections of the plan. Your current comprehensive plan is a pretty sparse document. It's essentially a land use plan. That originally what a comprehensive plan was just primarily focused on land use. What are the current land uses? What do we envision for the future? We've expanded that out quite a bit. We've got a chapter on land use and zoning. We've got a pretty substantial chapter on economic development, which is one of the key things we're looking at here. Housing, chapter on transportation and infrastructure, community facilities and services, nature and sustainability, health and wellness, and technology. So those are the big chapters in the plan. I'm just going to run through all these real quick. I don't want to keep you here too long. It is quite a thick document, about 120, 30 pages, so I'm not going to go through this whole thing. I'm just going to give you the highlights, and then we'll take any questions that you guys might have. So one of the main things that we wanted to do in this new comprehensive plan was incorporate all of the past planning efforts that the village has done over the recent 5, 10, 15 years. So we took your existing comprehensive plan, your zoning, and looked at your zoning ordinance, your TIF districts, your enterprise zone, the West Cook bicycle and pedestrian plan. You've recently are working with Bellwood in the Elevating Aging and Community. You've had the recent collaboration with UIC for the Climate Action Plan, so I pulled a lot of the recommendations out of those plans. And the Roosevelt Road Streetscape Plan. Roosevelt Road is the primary commercial corridor, so we really had a heavy emphasis on Roosevelt Road. There we go. So this was our steering committee. This was a picture taken at our retreat in June when we had all the department heads there. So we got a lot of great information there, and I just want to thank all of the people. Most of you guys are here right now, so thank you all for participating in this endeavor. So the first section of the plan is existing conditions. So we're basically looking at current conditions of physical conditions of buildings and properties in the village and the demographics of the community, just to see where we're at, what are the issues, and what kind of things do we need to address. So just kind of a high-level look at the demographics of Broadview. It's a stable population. You're pretty much at the population you're going to be at. It's hard in a community like this where you're completely built out. There's no vacant land for you to annex in for a new subdivision or anything. You're all locked in. So the only way you're going to increase population is through density. So your population has remained relatively stable for the past 20 years or so, and we anticipate it's going to remain the same. A couple other highlights of demographics: you have a higher median age than the neighboring communities in the region. So one of the big things we were looking at was senior housing, what we call aging in place. We want to provide opportunities for all income levels and all age levels. We don't want to get into a situation where as you get older there's nowhere for you to live and you have to leave the community. The racial demographics have been changing significantly. You're now majority African American. Hispanic is increasing, white is decreasing. It used to be higher white, which is decreasing, so you kind of flip that. As far as education, half the residents over age 25 did not attend college, and the median income is falling below the state and county level, so you have a lower median income than your neighboring communities and the state at large. So those are some of the issues that we wanted to identify so that we could address those in the plan. Land use, I mentioned a little just now that you guys are locked in. There isn't really anywhere for you. There's no land for you to annex. We're not growing. We're within the boundaries of where we're going to be in. One of the big things, your motto, Broadview, a balanced community. So we wanted to enforce that, or we wanted to highlight that. You have a very good mix of, you're basically a third residential, a third commercial, a third industrial, which is super rare, and it's a very good asset for the community to have that, to have a stable single-family residential population and that industrial jobs market for the residents. So we did not want to do anything to disrupt that balance. That's one of the main goals, is to protect that balanced community, protect the strong residential neighborhoods, and again, encourage a mix of residential options. We want residential options for, we want to preserve and protect that single family. You have a very good single family housing stock, so we don't want to disrupt that, but we do want to look particularly along Roosevelt Road for opportunities for higher density where we can fit those in through like mixed use, kind of commercial on the ground floor, residential above, where we can make that happen. We want to maintain the varied mix of commercial uses in the Village Square Shopping Center. You guys have been doing a terrific job. I've been living in the area for probably 25 years now, and the Broadview Square is vastly different than it was when I first came here. Dave, particularly, I see Dave came in, is doing a wonderful job as far as recruiting new businesses and keeping the center full. That's a really good asset that the village has, and we want to maintain that. One of the recommendations I did put in the plan regarding the square is there's quite a bit of parking in there, so I think there is enough room where we can do some reconfiguration in there and maybe get some more outlots in where we don't need quite as much parking to get some more businesses in there. We want to encourage commercial and mixed-use development on Roosevelt Road and streetscape improvements. You guys did a Roosevelt Road streetscape improvement plan quite a few years ago, and it's been implemented about halfway, pretty much from 17th West. You've got, the pavers for the crosswalks and the furniture on this and the street or the sidewalk trees, but going east of 17th, that part hasn't been completed. So we have recently reconfigured the TIF district to help, that can help fund some of those improvements, but I did not mess with that streetscape plan. It's in place, and we want to just continue what you've been doing. There's some stuff on the west that needs to be fixed. Some of the garbage cans and the benches are broken to the street lights. So we want to fix that and then continue those improvements east down the rest of the corridor. And again, we want to protect the industrial base while mitigating any negative impacts from those industrial uses. And then I had a bunch of recommended changes to the zoning ordinance, a bunch of little stuff. We can, if anyone has any specific questions. Did not recommend anything drastic that's going to make anybody's property non-compliant or anything like that. But just a lot of little recommended changes, particularly on Roosevelt Road, related to parking. There's issues with parking, and particularly if we're trying to increase density on Roosevelt Road, how are we going to park? How are we going to accommodate all the parking? So there's some tweaks in the zoning ordinance to allow maybe a little bit higher, some tweaks to parking that we can tweak. We want to tweak the code to allow some of those recommendations of the plan to be allowed, essentially. The next chapter is economic development. This was a big chapter. That map right there, you can see that's a 5-minute, a 10-minute, and a 15-minute drive time from Broadview. So that's kind of the market that we're looking at. So you can see, we're not just looking at when we're looking to recruit businesses to come into Broadview on Roosevelt Road or in the square. This is kind of what they're looking at. They're looking at not just the market in Broadview, but the regional market, who can actually come who will actually be utilizing those businesses within a reasonable distance. So that's essentially that outer blue is about 15-minute drive time. So those are people who can reasonably come and shop in Broadview. So that's the market that we're trying to attract. So you can see some of those big numbers as far as total residents, over 170,000 residents. So we're not just looking at, Broadview has a very small population, but the region at large, that's what we're attracting. Almost 65,000 households, almost 70,000 housing units. Median age is 40. The median household income is 77,000. So You guys are slightly under all this, but you can still capture those customers in the region. And then that number at the bottom, that 340 million, that's the projected retail growth within that area over the next 10 years. So there's some opportunities to be had. And what happened here? Huh. All right, that slide disappeared. What was that? Okay, so I lost my slide on some of my recommendations for economic development, but some of the major recommendations for economic development are to fill the vacant tenant spaces in the Village Square and on Roosevelt Road, continue to diversify the commercial uses within the village. Again, you guys are doing a great job at that over the last 5 years or 10 years or so. We want to keep that going. We want to recruit businesses that can draw from that larger surrounding region. We want to maintain the industrial user base that can benefit from the close proximity to the highway, and that have another unique thing about your industrial areas. You actually have rail access for some of those businesses at the back of those businesses, which is not common. So that's another good plus for attracting industrial users. And then we want to utilize your TIF district and your enterprise zone incentives to the highest possible use to incentivize and bring in commercial and industrial businesses. I know at our last safety committee meeting, we actually had the representative from the enterprise zone come. So I think he's going to start coming regularly to our safety committee meetings, which is phenomenal. I definitely encourage the village and the enterprise zone to work together. They have some very good incentives that can help, particularly industrial businesses if they're doing any new construction. And does my housing slide disappear too? Yeah, my housing slide disappeared too. Okay, housing, one of the I don't want to say issues. One of the main focuses of the plan was again, to protect that single-family residential base that the village has. You are primarily single-family. There's scattered apartment buildings on Roosevelt Road and on 17th, but you're primarily single-family. But there are opportunities on Roosevelt Road, like I said, to increase density in some of those infill spots. There's one we're working on the vacant spot now on the far east end of Roosevelt Road that hopefully potentially can come through. You have very low vacancy rates than the surrounding region, which is terrific. You do have an older housing stock, and the majority of the houses were constructed pre-1980, so we want to really keep on code enforcement, but that doesn't seem to really be a huge issue for you guys. Most of the properties are very well maintained, which is another good plus for the village. There is a high percentage of housing costs, so those are residents who are paying more than 30% of their income on housing, so that's a high number. You don't want to go over 30% for your housing costs, so that's something we want to take a look at. We definitely want to encourage a mix of housing types, again, for every age group, every demographic, every income level. And then one of the major focuses I got from the mayor was to focus on what we call the missing middle housing. So those are your, we have housing for entry-level housing for like new families, like smaller ranch-style housing, and then you have higher 3-4 bedroom houses, but that kind of in the middle part, nobody seems to be building those. So those are the ones we want to target. We don't want people, you have your first house and then you want to move up a little and there's nothing in Broadview, so you got to go somewhere else. We want to keep that whole range so that everybody can stay in the village basically through their lifestyle. And then the other main focus was on senior housing. Again, Broadview's median age is higher than most of the surrounding regions, so we really want to look at opportunities. You've got the wonderful new senior housing that you just built, which is very successful. And that's a wonderful facility, and we want to work with them to make sure that we maintain that high level, and then, look for other opportunities for senior housing so that residents can have that wide range of housing options. And now, transportation. Now, I don't know why those slides disappeared. Transportation, we were looking at, streets and pedestrian and bicycle access was a big focus, and public transit. Public transit options are limited, so that is something that we were looking at. It's not like we're going to just magically get a train station. That's just not going to happen. But you're not too far from the Burlington Northern. It's not too far of a drive to get to a train station there. But there is going to be, I think I have on my next slide, the Pulse Cermak line. So Metra is starting a new, this new, what they call the Pulse lines. It's their new thing. It's a higher level of their standard pace routes. And there is going to be a new route coming right through Broadview, right down Cermak Road, and there will be a stop right at the Village Square. So that's a good opportunity to bring people in from outside the community and to provide access for your residents. They're in the process of working all that stuff out. They have a new template for I forget what they call it, the stands where you wait. They're much nicer than the typical ones. So they're working all that stuff out, and the launch will be in 2030, so that's still a couple of years away, but that is on the way. And then community services, we had pretty much all the department heads on our little committee. So we did look at all of the community services as far as municipal services, the Public Works Department, the Police Department, the Fire Department. I was in contact with the school districts and the library district and the park district, just trying to get a handle on their services, any needs that they might have. Again, we're not anticipating a huge jump in population that's going to necessitate, large increases in services or anything like that. But I did want to get a handle on, if there's anything coming down the pike that anybody needs, a new fire truck or whatever, we want to get that in the plan. I see eyes lighting up. That was just an example. But anything, any needs that you envision coming up over the next 5 to 10 years, we want to get that in the plan. So if I missed anything along those lines, please let me know, and we can get that addressed. And sustainability. So we had, the village recently did a collaboration with UIC, the University of Illinois, Chicago. They had 2 groups that prepared 2 separate plans. I don't know how many of you guys got to watch their presentations. I think they're on YouTube. You can watch them. I think they did. I was a little suspicious, at first. I wasn't sure what they were going to do. So I was a little tentative to pull stuff out to put in the plan. But they actually had a lot of really good recommendations. So my biggest concern was protecting the industrial areas, because they were super focused on air quality and truck traffic, and I'm concerned with that stuff too, and we want to address the truck traffic, but we don't want to cripple the industrial district, which is the main tax driver of the village and the main employment base. So that's kind of a delicate balance as far as environmental issues go, is protecting that industrial base while trying to mitigate some of those environmental effects. And there's a lot of things that we can do, kind of working with the industrial users. You've got a lot of big warehouses with large flat roofs. If you're looking at solar, that's a way to do it. Put them on the roofs of those buildings. You can work with those industrial users to address some of those issues. We looked at tree surveys and flood hazard map. I saw they're doing a bunch of work on the creek right now to address some of the potential flooding issues down there, so that should definitely help. One of the issues with the tree, I don't know how, you probably can't see that tree map very well. So it looks like there's some large, big blank spots, but that's essentially your industrial area and the Broadview Square, so we're not really expecting to see a lot of trees there. But that is something that we can look at, is just planting more trees. I'm a huge fan of trees, so we did map that out. Just a couple of more. Health and wellness. A couple of the major issues, or I don't want to say issues, opportunities. You're very close to the Loyola Medical Centers right down the street in Hines VA. So there is opportunities there to kind of work off of that large medical institution and potentially attract businesses on Roosevelt Road, or housing opportunities for the employees and the people who come and visit the hospital. Some other things we touched on in health and wellness: want to promote access to healthy food options, and we looked at mental health services, disability access. That's like ADA stuff, making sure everything's accessible. Health insurance, I talked a little bit about senior living, and we want to make sure that everything is accessible, particularly with the new senior housing option. We want to look at ways that they can access the grocery store or get to where they want to go. And daycare facilities as well, we looked at. And then lastly, technology. Broadband internet access, the village is pretty much covered, so that's good. We looked at you're pretty much covered for cell coverage as well. So I did look at a couple of recommendations there. We want to look at things like co-locating the cell towers, so that if multiple cell providers are coming in, we don't want those cell towers popping up all over the place. They can all co-locate on the same pole. Recommendations like that, as well as some recommendations that the village could implement as far as just internally in the municipal building, some options for computer software to help manage some of the workflow in the village. And some things you could potentially do for community outreach. Actually, the mayor does a very good job with community outreach as far as holding lots of public meetings, and you guys have pretty good turnout to a lot of these events. But as I was talking about earlier, with trying to reach the younger generation, doing things like newspaper ads and stuff just doesn't do the trick anymore. So we got to start looking at more creative approaches. So I put some recommendations in there on ways you could maybe address that. Those kinds of things do tend to be costly, so those are kind of long-term things that you can look at as far as that goes. There's a lot of things you can do with a lot of communities do things with cell phone apps, have like a village app. You can coordinate that with GIS, where you can, where residents can go, oh, there's an issue here, and point it on the map and stuff. Those kind of things can get super expensive, so I did put some recommendations and some ideas in there, but those are more long-term strategies as far as technology goes. So that's kind of a 50,000-foot look at the plan. Again, it's a thick plan. It's about 120 pages, so I'm not going to go through everything. There's quite a few recommendations in there. So that's my big concern right now, is I want, a lot of times we go through these planning efforts, and the village does it just to kind of check off a box that we did it, and then, the plan goes and sits on somebody's shelf in their office, never to be looked at again. So I don't want to do that to you guys, so I want this to be something that you guys are going to use. So I'm particularly concerned with my recommendations. So particularly the mayor and staff, take a good look at those. There's probably a couple pages of recommendations on each one of those chapters, just little things you can do. And there's an implementation in the back where I provided a bunch of potential funding sources. I know everything with grants and federal aid is kind of up in the air right now, but that'll all get figured out eventually. So there's a lot of opportunities where you could potentially get money. So I looked at all that stuff to just to give you ideas of where you can potentially fund some of the recommendations in there. But I really want to make sure that the recommendations I put in there are your vision. So, you know, if there's anything in there I recommended that you guys are uncomfortable with, I'm happy to take it out. If there's anything I missed, I'm happy to add it in. I know we probably got a couple of more weeks left until this will go to actually get approved. So there's still time. I can make any changes you guys want before we finish up the process. So that's kind of a quick summary. I'm happy to take any questions anybody might have. Yes?
Kind of a twofold question. So one, you said it's a 10 to 20-year plan. What happens if new administration, because this the current administration's plan, how do you handle new administration?
The plan, once the plan's adopted, that's your plan. So if there's a new administration, I know that'll still be the plan. So I know a lot of times if there's a change in administration, they might want to amend the plan or rewrite it, come up with a new plan, but they would have to do that. But changing administration, the plan will be adopted. It'll be your official comp plan. One thing to keep in mind, you know, these are all recommendations. So like the zoning ordinance, those are the laws. Those are your land use laws. That tells you exactly what you can do on your property. It can only be this tall. It can have to have this setback. So the comprehensive plan, these are recommendations for the long term. So none of this stuff is really binding. It's just a guideline for the board on making those land use decisions.
Okay. So I guess that answers my other question. I was going to say the monitoring piece, are there key performance indicators or KPIs? But because it's kind of recommendations and they have to adopt it, that be something that the board would have to decide on.
Yeah, I did put an implementation section at the end where all of the recommendations from each chapter I pulled out and then tried to break it down into short-term, medium-term, and long-term, and then kind of who's responsible and where you could potentially get funding. So that kind of gives you a rough outline of you know, what you can do now, what are some easy things you can do right now, and what are kind of the long-term expensive things that we might have to plan further down the line for. But yeah, the board will have to do that, but there's a rough outline in there.
And then my last question is on the tech piece, you said we're broadband, like we're pretty good on broadband. Have we looked at fiber? I'm just thinking, like, I work at home and fiber is way faster than broadband, but I know right now, particularly AT&T, a lot of them don't offer fiber out here yet. They starting off? Okay. Because they told me weeks that they didn't, but okay. That was my only other question. Thank you.
Hi, could you expound a little more on Loyola and Hines? I was concerned about health and wellness because I do get my medical care from Loyola, but they're going through a lot of changes now, and so is the VA. So can you kind of give a little more input as to down the road what you'd be able to extract from them? Because when you say working with them to become more accessible, does that mean on-site there or like a separate site in the village?
Well, more what I'm looking at is, you know, making sure there's access, that the people who need to access that have a way to get there. So looking at, you know, bus routes or how you can actually get there. You know, the facility's not actually in Broadview, but it's so close that, you know, it's not really a Broadview asset, but it is a Broadview asset. So the other main thing we were looking at is just kind of spin off. You know, you have this large medical facility right there at the edge of town. So a large number of, you know, doctors and nurses and employees that are going there every day, and a large number of people that are coming to visit relatives in there every day. So there's opportunities, particularly along Roosevelt Road, for, you know, can we provide housing for the nurses? Can we provide restaurant that, you know, the people who are going to visit relatives, is there somewhere they can come in Broadview and shop, and is there somewhere they can come in Broadview and eat? So we're kind of looking at spin-off stuff from the hospital. and then just access to the hospital, yeah.
Thank you.
You mentioned about 2, 3-bedroom homes, and then in the area, we should be able to get homes with more bedrooms in it so that we'll be able to keep the residents that's currently here. Where would we put that at, the
Well,
homes?
that's the challenge, yeah. So again, you know, we're built out, yeah, 1 second, Dave. We're built out, so we're not gonna annex a big piece of property and build a new subdivision. You know, I don't wanna mess with the stable, single-family neighborhoods we have right now. We don't wanna mess with that. So, you know, there's not a lot of opportunities for new housing.
Right.
Primarily, where we're seeing it is kind of, there's always kind of infill, you know, where you might be able to squeeze one in here or there. But primarily, we're looking at Roosevelt Road, where we could potentially do higher density, you know, go a little taller.
So go up.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
really the only way you're gonna increase your population is to increase density. And we don't wanna get rid of the single-family neighborhoods, so, you know, that's kind of the option that's left. So again, that's where I was looking at, you know, things you can tweak in your zoning ordinance, where like right now, you're capped at a certain height, you can't go any taller. You know, you have to provide a certain amount of parking, and it has to be you have to have a certain amount of land. So there's things we can look at to tweak to make it easier, because particularly on Roosevelt Road, they're not particularly deep. You know, so to go up, you're gonna end up needing to go up, and to provide parking for that many units going up, you're not gonna be able, you're gonna need to do a garage, essentially, and that gets super expensive, so we have to provide, so that's where some of your economic development incentives can come in, the TIF and the enterprise zone, to help incentivize those things.
Okay.
And then, you know, tweak the zoning to allow in certain areas, you know, we don't want tall skyscrapers or anything, I'm not suggesting that, but we can go a little higher to get a little more density, to get more residents.
Okay.
Did you have something, Dave?
I was just going to say last year in the village. I was just going to say last year in the village, we saw an increase in dormers and additions on people's homes. The most expensive addition I saw was $178,000. And the other thing that we've started to, the mayor and I have started to have some discussions on, as I go to conferences and things, are looking at ADUs, additional dwelling units. Those are like, for example. Well,
Yeah.
ADUs as in like Oak Park coach houses would be an example.
Yeah, I did put a section in the plan on that. So that would be something like, you know, my mom's 93, she lives with my sister. They had built a little, you know, space for her. So it's that kind of thing. Maybe you can convert a garage or the room above your garage to an apartment for your parents, so you don't have to send them to a home or whatever.
Sorry about that. I'm in the process of investigating that, and we're looking at our zoning ordinances as it relates to ADUs. So that is something we're looking at, and that's part of the plan.
Yeah. That's I think that would be tough in your current zoning code, and there is a recommendation in the plan to look at that and potentially, tweak the language in the code to allow some things that are strictly prohibited now.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw a little support behind Dave's idea here. If you just go down 25th Avenue on the other side of the Forest Preserve and zigzag through that LaGrange Park neighborhood over to 17th, every other house, or if not more than that, they're just like Broadview. They're the old square brick homes. They're ripping the roofs off. They're throwing a second story on and turning the 2-bedroom home into a 3 or 4-bedroom home. And that allows younger families to move to your community that are going to stick around for a while, put more students in your school, and it's a way to grow, not so much that you're getting bigger, but density, I believe is the word I'm looking for.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's increasing the density that way. And again, you got to look at your codes and what it takes to get that done.
Absolutely, yeah. I think on my block alone, I'm right outside, I'm in Brookfield, just right outside. On my block alone, I think 6 houses have done that already, where they just tore off the roof, put a massive second story on there. So, yeah. This was yours.
Well, I just want to say thank you, Pete, for the overview of the draft of our comprehensive plan. This is a plan that's been long overdue. And so if you look at the historical comprehensive plan that Broadview had, it was from 2006. And it wasn't a full comprehensive plan, it was a land use plan only. And so we have that documented in the conversations that we had through all of the planning meetings so that the residents could fully understand why we needed a fully aggressive, comprehensive plan on where we're going from today and how we move going forward. So the question that came up about new administration coming in, this is where it starts. Once the board adopts this, it's a working document. So the things that we put in there today, it can change in 5 years because what if we have a growth sprout in population? That's going to change the document as we work through this. But it gives us a playing field that whoever holds the seat in this elected body, whether the mayor or the board of trustees, we have something that's tangible, that's in place, that we can continue to grow in the right direction, and we're not just throwing balls up in the air and trying to figure it out, especially when it comes to economic development. You know, we hear a lot of conversations like we have no growth on our Roosevelt Road corridor. Well, we do have growth, but you have to look at the lay of the land of the businesses that own those vacant stores. What do those stores bring? You know, you got to look at the capacity, the square footage size, property taxes that come with that. So it's a cost that come with how you develop. And in Broadview, we have intentional economic development growth. It's intentional of the businesses that come to the village of Broadview. Commissioner Upshaw, he actually goes to different conferences to build those relationships and network. And when we have leaders that have the skill set to navigate through the development part on the business side, and I'm not just talking about the residential side, but when we look at the business side, we have to look at how we generate sales tax revenue so that our property taxes can remain low and we can still have a robust municipal service of providing high-quality services to our residents. So this plan allows us to do that. But we also had to include technology. Technology has changed from 2006. In 2006, we didn't have AI. And so we have to be aggressive and stay abreast of the goals of how we set the standards as we move forward with the comprehensive plan and all the different multiple pieces that makes up municipality. We are a municipality, and we have several other different taxing bodies like our school districts. We have 6 different school districts that we have that students go to in the village of Broadview. And so we have to be mindful of how we educate our students and making sure that we have the resources that we can share with our local schools or our library services. That's a big deal. Those are stakeholders within our community. And if we have a comprehensive plan, we can look at our business model and say, okay, this is how this is going to impact education for the sales tax or the property tax that go to the different school districts or the library districts. So I'm excited about the work that we've done so far to get to this place where we can afford to do a comprehensive plan, because it's not a cheap thing. But it is something that's required and necessary for the growth that we want in the village of Broadview. And we have to continue to have those leaders in place that have the professional skill set that can continue to move the needle forward as we look at economic development, how we look at health and wellness, how we look at transportation, how we look at housing. You have to have a skill set to move these documents and to be able to gauge and have those relationships so that we can grow in the right direction, but we don't grow just staying stagnant with one person, we grow together. And that's why the work that we did with the different meetings that we had and the pop-up events that we had, it was intentional to do it that way because we wanted input from all ages. All ages. When our kids are involved with these conversations and they giving input on things that they want to see, we looking at it like I'm going to be aging, right? So I'm going in the next phase of my life. They see it from a different lens. We have to engage them to be able to keep the comprehensive moving forward. The kids that's in high school, graduating from high school, they're 18. In 15 years, they're going to be in their early 30s. We want that input from them from where they are right now, so by the time they get to 30, guess what? They're looking at changing the lay of the comprehensive plan because it needs to fit their landscape where they are at that age time as they grow and age in our community. We look at it from, I'm aging now, and this is what I need. I need housing. I want to move into a house. I want to get rid of my house. I want to move into a senior housing or, you know, something that can accommodate my age and lifestyle. But the reality of it is this plan is for all people in all ages. It's not just for one group of people. So I want to thank you all for being here this evening and all of the viewers that watched online. I don't know do we have any questions from online? Okay, we don't have any questions from online, so I just want to say thank you all for participating. I'm excited about this plan and the work that we all put into it and to the trustees. I see Trustee Senior is here, Trustee Abraham is here. Thank you all for being here this evening. It really means a lot to us on how we drive and keep the village moving forward in the direction that it needs to go in, and that's because we are Broadview Strong. Have a good night.